A very good afternoon to one and all. And today we continue our lunchtime devotions. And today's reading is on Luke 15, whole chapter actually, and it talks about three parables of, I think we are very familiar with these three parables. But even as we go along, many of you would have discovered as we read the Gospels, each time we read, we find some new gems of truths or some little trivia here and there that we have missed the first, the second, or third time. So even I think, as many of you have read or going to read today, the three parables, you will discover some many new and exciting things. So a little background on Luke chapter 15. What is the background? You remember Pastor was saying yesterday's one, they were asking who is the greatest and things like that. And they had just come down from the transfiguration story. So now the background is we begin to see more and more non-Jewish people coming to hear our Lord Jesus. And we are not talking about a few here and there, we're talking about multitudes. And there were publicans. Who are the publicans? We'll come to that. And sinners, of course, to the Jewish people, those who are not Jews, they're sure sinners, close to be the category of dogs. Quite serious, those people's view of people who are not Jews. So the Pharisees and scribes, the other camp, they are supposedly very righteous and holy. So they began to murmur because they see Jesus as a rabbi, one of them. But how can he is beginning to engage more and more with the non-Gentile community and allowing them to come to him and to even eat with him? And they were shocked that he would welcome them, Jesus welcomed them, and even eat with them. Like many Asian cultures, to talk, to engage is one thing, but to invite them to your homes or to go to people's home when they invite you to have a meal means you are treating yourself as a good friend and as an equal with them. And the Pharisees and scribes, they cannot tahan that type of attitude from Jesus. So Jesus, fully aware of that, the unhappiness and the self-righteousness of the Pharisees and scribes, his answer to these murmurings is a parable. I will tell you a parable. So there are two things we need to spend a little bit of time on. What is a publican and what is a parable? So, and here he tells the story of the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. In essence, there are three parables, but they can also be taken as three parts of one big parable. We can bear that in mind. And because there's a common thread that weaves through these three wonderful parables, and that common thread is God's love, Jesus' love, and concern for sinful people like you and me, not just then, but also now. All right? So firstly, publicans. What are publicans? Because it keeps telling the publicans and sinners and Gentiles came to more and more, they were following Jesus, listening to him and engaging with him. So in essence, they were collectors of the Roman revenue, LHDN, and income tax department. They not just collected taxes, personal taxes, corporate taxes, they were also in charge of excise and duty, customs duty, and all this into the treasury, which is called the publican. And so they received the name of publican. And when we talk about customs duty, there was a lot of trade going in and out, and they would decide how much to tax on the goods, on the services, import tax, export tax. And this, the publicans primarily, the original plan was they were to be given to the richest class of the Romans, who were at some point actual custom house officers who knew how much to tax and all. And they would examine, they're supposed to examine each bale of goods that were incoming or outgoing, assess its value, wrote out the ticket, and enforce the payment. However, in the New Testament, when the term publican was used, it has become to be used for the Roman agents. The Romans appointed the local people to be their agents to collect and to a very large extent decide also how much to collect. In short, outsourcing already happened in those days. But of course, such a system essentially leads to corruption and sheer corruption. And the Jews mainly and the locals were not shy about indulging in this, because apparently what they collected in excess, part of it would be siphoned back to the rich Romans, the original custom house officers. So this was considered the worst of all livelihoods. And the publicans in the New Testament, they were regarded as traitors, taking money from your own people. And they defiled themselves by their frequent interaction with the heathen Romans. And they became willing tools of their conquerors. Why? Because there's money to be made. Incidentally, the term publican, just trivia, in Australia, publican is not tax collector, but the owner or manager of a pub, a drinking place. Parable, the other thing we need to understand, of course, most of us know what a parable is, but it is in essence a short, simple story designed to communicate a spiritual truth, a religious principle, or a moral lesson. In many ways, it's a figure of speech. And that truth, or those truths, is illustrated by comparison or an example drawn from everyday experiences. Often no more than a story, using symbolic language to illustrate one particular truth. And in a parable, something is placed alongside something else in order that one may throw light on the other. So a familiar custom or things that are in the geography of that land is often used to illustrate so that people can connect, can associate with what was being conveyed, that truth, not so much the story. And this was Jesus's characteristic method of teaching. And he went through parables most of the time. Listen here. Although parables are often memorable stories, they impress the listener with a clear picture of the truth. Even the disciples sometimes were confused as to the meaning of the parables. Why? Parables is a double-edged sword. They cut both ways. They can either enlighten those who are seeking the truth, or they can blind those who were disobedient, those who were hardened. So if you have ears to hear, let them hear. Jesus would often say. So more parables were very interesting. If you want to know the truth, you can get it. But if your heart is hardened, you are not interested, sorry, you're missing out a very great truth. So here we see there are three parables, what we say, they could be woven into one, three parts into one big parable. We read about the lost sheep. All right, and the sheep, of course, to that community then, no problem. Everybody would have seen or touched or felt or owned sheep. But as most of us know, the sheep is not the smartest animal in the world. Very exceedingly dumb animal and not having great sense of direction or other things. And it was appropriate that Jesus used the sheep or the lamb to depict the lost spiritual condition of the people. He used it in many references then, not just here in Luke. So this part of the parable tells about the shepherd going up after one lost sheep. He had 100, left the 99 behind to look after the one. And this is a human characteristic, a universal human characteristic, that we go after something which we lost. And here Jesus sees the plight of lost sinners. And in many ways he's telling, don't worry, even if you are one, I will go and look for you. The Pharisees, on the other hand, they care very little. In fact, they do not care at all about lost sinners. While Jesus is telling that truth about, I will go and look for you, he's also telling the truth. There are people who are supposed to look after you, but they do not care. And when he finds the sheep or a lamb, he lays it on his shoulder, rejoicing. A wonderful image. Like here we see an old-time painting. The poor sheep, the lost sheep, was probably lost, tired, hungry. But the shepherd did not mind carrying it on his shoulder, that extra burden. And on top of that, when he reached home, he called the friends, the neighbors to celebrate, to rejoice. Mainly because he just wanted to celebrate, or he had deployed them to help him in his search for that one lost sheep, leaving the 99 behind. So we see here, quite easy, the analogy. Jesus is the great shepherd. We are the sheep, and there will be people who will get lost. Frankly speaking, 1 out of 100, that 1% is a pretty good percentage, and we would cut losses. Don't waste time to look for it. But in this case, the good shepherd is not satisfied with just 99. When one got lost, he went out to look for it. And when he found it, he didn't just drag it along or put it in a gun. He said, no, he lovingly puts it on his shoulders, a place of comfort, a place of strength. He goes all the way to save the uttermost. Just a sidetrack, talk about putting the lost sheep or lamb on the great shepherd's shoulders. The high priest, during Aaron's time, they had wonderful golden garments, very elaborate, and that breastplate section is called the ephod. And here we see here, the ephod, that's the breastplate. We know the 12 precious stones, but on the shoulder, little known, is shoulder straps, and on the shoulder straps, there are two big stones, onyx actually, one on the left, one on the right. And on these stones are engraved, 6 each, the names of the 12 tribes. So here, it is the high priest's job to carry the children of Israel on his shoulders. But we know, the Pharisees and scribes, the priests, they were not in the least bothered. On the other hand, our high priest, our Lord Jesus, carries us on his shoulders, and we will never be lost. So this is an amazing picture, comparing it to the high priest, the Levitical high priest, and our high priest, Jesus. And then we go on to the next part of the 3-part parable. Here we read about the woman with her 10 coins. The parable tells about a woman who lost the 10 coins, and each coin is about a day's wages. And many commentators said the coins were worn as a headdress, as you see in this picture here. And not only that, picture of adornment, but it was also her savings and part of her dowry. The Jewish custom, I believe in dowry at that time. Now don't know or not. So what is at end here is, at issue here was not only the value of that one coin, but also the fact that she would be losing part of her dowry, and that is a shameful thing. And of course, we read that she wasn't a rich woman. It was a peasant house with a low doorway. And therefore, when she went with few windows, when she went to look for the missing coin, she had to light her lamp, sweep every nook and corner, and hopefully listening to the clink, and she would find it. And when she found it, her joy knew no bounds. She rushed, and again, same story, call her friends, let's rejoice. So we see here, again, when one sinner comes to repentance and in God's presence, the angels share that joy. But the self-righteous scribes, the Pharisees, they did no such thing. They lacked this joy when somebody comes. But God's gracious acceptance was wonderful news to ordinary men and women who heard him. Interestingly enough, the coin was lost right at home. People, here we can draw some truth. People may be members of good churches and still be lost. The sheep may be with a group and then it starts to wander. And the 99 did no attempt to bring back or to call back the lost. So in short, the coin of course doesn't know, but it doesn't know that it is being lost. A good reminder, we who are in the church, we who are at home in the family of believers, if somebody is lost, we can do something about it. Okay, and then we go on to the third part of the parable, which is the story of the prodigal son. Many of us know a better title would be the parable of the father, because in essence the story focuses on the love of God the Father. Let me read to you in the New King James just a short part of the first part of this prodigal son. And then he said, Jesus said, a certain man had two sons. Younger of them said to his father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. So he divided them, his inheritance, his livelihood. And not many days after, the young son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. But when he had spent all, there arose a severe famine in that land, and he began to be in want. In want means lack, the money slowly going away. So we read that not only he was in a bad way financially, the whole country was in a bad way. Sounds familiar, huh? So in a country, when he thought the grass was, he went to another country, we read in the parable. He thought the grass is always greener. But now not only no green grass, no grass at all. Everybody is having a famine. And this young man doesn't know what to do. If you want to know what the commentator said, he said he was, number one, afraid to go home. Of course, that would be a natural thing. Shame and comments from others, and probably afraid of the father and the elder brother. He was in desperate straits. Now, he's going to do something no Jew would ever dream of doing unless scraping the bottom of the barrel. He can't get a job. So he goes to his friends first and asks them what to do. Sorry, that was the point. What can they do to help him? Maybe a loan? Or could there be something they can do? But they tell him, sorry, cannot. And so he goes from place to place, and then he discovers, finally the penny drop. He discovers that he doesn't have any real friends. So he goes to the edge of town, probably another community already, where a man is raising pigs, swine. Many of us here in this group are familiar. We read about the Gerasene demoniac and all the demons going into the pigs, and the question of how can the Jews rear pigs? We'll come to that. He asked the man for a job, and the man said, I cannot pay you. If you want, you take care of the pigs, and what they eat, you eat lah. If you can beat them to it, maybe not so easy. And the young man, because he was a Jew, he was Hebrew, this is something he really cannot bring himself to do. The Jews must have nothing to do with pigs. So therefore, the man who owned the farm, probably a Gentile. But here, he was at his wit's end. He was lost. He does not know what to do. And we read in great detail, what food are we talking about that the pigs were eating? They use the word in some versions, husk or pods. And this tree actually is what we call a karok tree, very common in Syria and Egypt. And it produces pods shaped like a horn. You can see the picture here. And they grow in length 6 to 10 inches and about a finger's width. Dark brown, glossy, filled with seeds, some trivia, but edible, actually a sweetish taste. And it's used by food actually for the poor, apart from feeding of the swine. And this was the situation that the young man is. He has to fight with the pigs for this type of food. And then we read, finally he came to his senses. And that involves repentance. He realized what he was doing was wrong. And that's what sin does to us, It makes us see ourselves in the wrong light. That's what sin does. It makes us see the pleasures of the world in the wrong perspective. And we just cannot see clearly when we are in sin. We are lost in sin. And when the young man came to his senses, he knew what he had been through, and he was lost, and he could not think straight. So he repented, and he started to reason. He began to use his intelligence, and he figured out, if he go back to his father's house, there will be a better deal. And he began to reason out, he began to make sense. And in some versions we read, he came to his senses. And we read that he has got. But if we compare, look at all the three parts of the big parable, or three parables, the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. Each of them lost, and they did not know it, especially the son, until very later. So this lostness, being lost in sin, is something that is serious. People are lost and they don't even know they are lost. So we read these parables. For many of us, it is very familiar already. But most of the time we know it tells about the mysterious way God deals with the lost world. And Jesus, the master storyteller, tells part by part, and finally comes to the good ending. And the Pharisees and the scribes were not happy. They know indirectly they are in the story. The lost tax collectors, the lost publicans, the lost sinners have a chance. And they are saying, wow, you are welcoming them. I would imagine many of them are beginning to see this parable of lostness and how they are being depicted in bad light. So we see that when the lost sheep was found, he was not chucked back straight away into 99. The great shepherd took him along. When the lady found the coin, he did not throw it back with the other coins or fix it on the headdress. She kept it and rejoiced. And similarly, the point of going back was shown in the prodigal son. So here we see there is, in both cases, no going back, but except in the case of the prodigal son. But more important is what is at the receiving end. And it shows the father who has been actually treated badly by the son. When a Jewish man asks for his inheritance, he is in many ways telling the father, I wish you were dead so that I can get my inheritance. So here, God is not worried about our treatment of him. He is moved by his love the moment we are lost. And he will go out of his way to look for us, to find us, and together with the angels, he will rejoice. So here, we may be lost, but his love will not let us go. And as we end, I would like to share with you a wonderful hymn. Some of you would know it. It's written by George Patterson in the 19th century. And the title of the song is His Love That Will Not Let Me Go. Just now already mentioned, we'll recap again in the prodigal son, 3 parts. The father, which is the love for the lost son, lost sinners. And then the lost son, he's the repentant sinner, and also the publicans and the sinners, and also each of us who once upon a time were lost. And finally, the older son, the self-righteous scribes and Pharisees. So here we know we may be lost, but his love will not let us go, which brings to George Patterson's song of the same title. Here, a very interesting part was he was going blind by the time he was 20, and he had a fiancée. He was going to get married, but when she found out that he was going blind, she told him she cannot live with his blindness, and she left him. But for that time, George Patterson had a devoted sister who looked after him most of the time. George Patterson was also eventually became a pastor, apart from a theologian. But the sister too, at some point, had to get married, and it suddenly dawned upon George Patterson, he's going to be lost without the sister. What is he going to do? And in one day, he wrote this wonderful song, His Love Will Not Let Me Go. He surrenders, he rests his weary soul in him. Come, let us be blessed by this song.
That will not let me go. I rest my weary soul in thee. I give thee back the life I owe, that in thine ocean depths its flow may richer, fuller be. That
Come, let's